Welcome to Mountain Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into fascinating topics. I'm your moderator, Kristen Ulmer. I was a former professional athlete, considered the best woman big mountain extreme skier in the world for 12 years. I was also voted to be the most fearless woman athlete in North America by the outdoor industry. Currently, I'm a thought leader on fear and anxiety and author, and I also am a mindset sports coach. So we have a fascinating group of really cool women here with me today, and we're all just so impressed with each other. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back in just a little bit, meet these wonderful women, and discuss what their experience has been as professional athletes, and give you some fascinating takeaways for your own life. So see you back in a bit. Welcome back to Mountain Perspectives. We're here to discuss women in athletics, and we have a pretty interesting group of women here. I'm gonna have you guys introduce yourself. So we have Alice here, and we have Megan here, and then also Bayli. So why don't we start with you, Alice? Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what your background is?
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. So my name's Alice. I grew up in Indiana, South Bend. So as much as I wanted to be a ski racer when I grew up, we didn't really have that there. So golf was my go-to sport, and played growing up. Wasn't allowed to play in the high school team because I was the only girl playing. Went to college, played on a men's golf team. Was able to fight my way onto the men's golf team, and then was recruited to Oklahoma State to play Division I at Oklahoma State at a high level. We were top 5 in the country, and so I was very lucky. People gave me a lot of opportunity along the way without having much background. So, but I've lived in Vail for 30 years, currently work at the Vail golf course, director of golf there. I've been there for 16 years.
Welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
Okay, Megan.
Hi, my name is Meghan Buchanan, and I'm a jack of all trades. No, I don't know. What I am known for recently is I've completed the 7 summits, which is the highest peak on every continent, and I am soon to become the 5th woman to complete the Explorers Grand Slam, which is the 7 summits and then last degree ski to the North and South Pole. It wasn't really something that I knew I was going to do when I was younger. I actually was diagnosed with dyslexia very, very young. It was a great challenge. I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment and really knocked my self-esteem, and the outdoors was my therapy. And so I would go hiking with my father, and it was something I was just naturally so good at and I loved, and that is what helped build my self-confidence. And so growing up older, I took on the challenge to become an aerospace engineer. That was a challenge on its own, and all through that time, again, climbing mountains. The 14ers of Colorado was my home away from home, and it was, again, where I would work through everything and keep moving forward. It wasn't really until I had a horrendous snowboarding accident here in Vail and was told that I would have a cane and wheelchair the rest of my life after shattering my femur, that I really dug in deep within myself to pull myself out of that recovery. And I wanted to go climb Kilimanjaro again, which I had done. And it was a piece of cake for me because I was so mentally strong. And then that is what set me on this journey to do the 7 summits in the North and South Pole. And so I am a Vail Valley resident, was full-time. Now I'm kind of back and forth a couple places, but this is where I always find my base camp and my roots and come back to.
All this, and you're an aerospace engineer.
During the daytime, yes. That's my day job, pays the bills.
So my ex-husband is an aerospace engineer. I'll still hang out with you anyway.
Okay, thank you, yes.
All right, Bayli, let's
I'm
talk to you.
Bayli. I've lived in the Valley my whole life, and I grew up skiing. Like, that was what I did. I became an alpine ski racer. I went to the Ski and Snowboard Academy, and kind of like that was my life. That's what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't even people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was like, professional athlete. And so I did that, and I made the U.S. ski team, and it was great. And then COVID hit, and I kind of was like, my heart kind of wasn't in it anymore. I started biking a lot, loved the endurance aspect, and kind of fell in love with it. And so it was a big, hard decision, but it was hard because I had let a lot of people down, but also I was wanting to follow my heart. And so I changed, and the past few years, I've just been training so hard. And this past year, I got on a national team, and so just working my way up and trying to get to that national level and hopefully do some World Cups, and yeah, so.
What do you think it is about endurance sports that you like so much more?
I love that you can push yourself so hard and you can work so hard in training, and like no matter what, it's rewarding. Like in ski racing, like it comes down to like just like tenths of a second, and the smallest mistake, you're done, you're out, and you would have worked so hard all year. Whereas like endurance, like in a race, something could happen and you can get it back. Like you have time, and you have that confidence that you train so hard, that you have the fitness to do well. And so it's definitely, it's a cool challenge, and it's very fascinating to be around girls that work so hard as well. So I like it. I just enjoy it.
What I find interesting about endurance sports is they, like with Tough Mudder and Spartan, they've become so much more popular. And I think it's because people don't have enough challenge in their lives, and they want to go through that suffering that we don't really have to feel in America. Like we don't really suffer that much here, and it's like we have to self-impose it upon ourselves. And I have a great quote: "It doesn't have to be fun to be fun." Like it's not fun what you're doing, but you're having fun.
Yeah, there's some hard days, but it's like addicting, like every time. Yeah, I mean, most of my races this year haven't gone great, but it's like that one that goes good, or that one training session where you just feel so fast and kind of back to yourself. Like it's rewarding and it's addicting. And I think it's not always fun. Like it hurts and it can be very, very hard, but it's like that's the fun part, I think. Enjoying that. It's hard to understand sometimes, but
Right. And these sports are addiction, but then you have to wonder, like, is it the sport that's addicting, or is it the place that the sport takes us that's addicting? And for me, it was always the place that I went to in my life experience, like in my mind, in my body, that was addicting, not the skiing itself. Does that feel
I feel like that
familiar?
too. Like it's like I love being on my bike. Like recently I've really learned to kind of take a step back and look around and not always look at my handlebars and look at my power and my my hours and everything. Like I've just learned to look around, and I love it, and it's beautiful, and I love to see where my bike takes me, and the places that we race are insane. So yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's definitely been a journey and been, I don't know, it's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, Alice Plain, and actually we can all answer this question. What does it take to be an elite athlete? Why don't you start?
There are quite a few things that I think it takes to be a professional athlete and a successful one. First you need the passion. And it's so fun to sit here next to Bayli, and she's at the beginning of her professional path and professional career, and you really have to believe in yourself and not listen to the chatter out there of people saying, oh, well, really, are you going to really do this another year? You have to believe in yourself, and if it's your dream, your vision, you don't want anyone to get in your way, and you have to sacrifice things, but you definitely, if you feel it in yourself, you really want to pursue that and not let anything get in your way, really, and that's very important.
Did it come naturally for you to believe in yourself, or did you have to choose to believe in yourself?
So, that's a great question. I played a lot of sports. I was really just a jock growing up. So I played soccer, golf. I played with all the boys, and, and I was good. I could beat the boys, which always made me feel good. And so I did have confidence, but I did play professionally for a bit, and for me it was challenging dealing with the highs and the lows. So I've worked so hard. I get into an event. I remember playing at the Colorado Open. I was a professional then. Play there. It's my home state, new home state, and I really struggled. And it was hard to feel defeated, So dealing with those highs and lows, I think, is very challenging, and trying to figure out, know that they could come, and knowing how to manage those highs and lows. And it's important to accept those failures and learn from those and know that you're going to have those, because that just makes you so much better. So I think there's a lot to it to be a successful professional athlete. And I don't know Bayli very well, but I know she's going to be successful, and it's fun. It's going to be fun to watch you in your future.
Yeah.
Similar question. When you were experiencing the lows, did it come naturally for you to accept them, or did you have to work on that?
Not. No, it was really hard. It was really hard.
What was your process to get to the place of acceptance?
You know, for me, I didn't have I didn't have really much of a team around me. I had some friends, a little bit of family, but it was really just kind of self-reflecting. I actually got on my bike. I love being on my bike, so that kind of was a good release for me. Like, trying to figure out that playing golf and my score didn't reflect me as a person. But when you're in it, it's just so hard. So for me, it was a little bit of time and getting back to the grind, getting on my bike, doing some other things that weren't specifically related to, competing in golf. But that was by far the hardest thing for me to go through. 3 years I was playing professional golf, and dealing with those highs and lows are the hardest. I'm a very positive person, so when things didn't go my way, it was like I was kind of down in the dumps.
It's not just in athletics, too. I was just talking to my
Right.
niece yesterday. She's a high-level soccer player. Not even unrelated to the soccer. She's just lost right now and miserable. And I'm like, your job right now is to be lost and miserable. She's like, oh, thank you.
Right.
It's like we just have to work through some stuff on our bike sometimes and just
Right.
feel lost and miserable and like a complete failure.
Right, right.
Or a fraud or...
And then it'll come back.
Yeah, and then you come back. All
And
right.
you come back better and
Yeah.
stronger if you can get through those times. And
Yeah.
it's part of it. It's part of being a professional athlete.
It's that journey. So it's that journey, and you're talking about how you're starting to pick up on this journey you're about to go on. And to be a professional athlete, I think you need to be aware of the mental journey of it is not about just your body and performance. You keep going with that consistency because you mentally learn how to pull yourself back. And for me, I've summed it up into grit, which is, to me, it's gratitude, growth, resilience, integrity, and tenacity. And that's how you get through it. That gratitude to be able, no matter where you're in, those highs or the lows, to be able to pick up and focus on what you're grateful for at that moment. And that helps build your positivity back up. The growth is being willing to rebuild again, be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to take on new skills. Like when I wanted to up my game from, hiking Kilimanjaro it's a long hike. It's not technical. And then when I really wanted to put on my big girl pants and become a technical climber, I had to learn how to ice climb. I had to learn all my rope skills, everything. And I was brand new at it, and I sucked. And it's willing to push yourself through that discomfort to get to where you want to be. And the resilience to get back up a million times over and over again. Integrity, I think for me in anything we do, to hold on to integrity within yourself, to speak up for yourself, to speak up for others. And you get through all of that in that growth cycle over and over again with tenacity. Just that tenacious burn in your belly. And listening to every single one of you has that. We get that burn in our belly of, I know this is what I should be doing. And we choose to do it, to get back up every single time. And to me, it's that grit is how you become, you achieve the extraordinary.
Love that. Well said.
Thank you.
And I find that everybody is different, though. It's not a one-size-fits-all experience. Because for me, like gratitude or getting to positivity, that's not what worked for me. Like I remember one time, it was a competition where I better win or else I was going to lose my status as the best in the world. And it was the best of 2 runs. And after the first run, I wasn't winning. I played it too safe. I didn't take enough risks. And I had 2 hours to think about it. And I was disgusted in myself. I had imposter syndrome. I was afraid. I thought maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was. But all of these, fear, anger, disgust, all of that were emotions that motivated me, and drop by drop, instead of trying to get to positivity, like, I've got this, I didn't do any of that. It's like my anger made me right or wrong, and my fear, I was more afraid of not winning this competition than of jumping off a 70-foot cliff onto hardpack in the 90s on skinny skis. So that's what I went and did, and it's like drop by drop by drop, my negativity turned me into a mighty river. And I did the run, and I was in a flow state, and took 7th overall for the men, and 1 for the women. So it's like everybody, I feel, has a different, like, grit, tenacity is yours, but for me, just being in the mess that is my life at that time as motivation for me to perform. And so one thing that I'm noticing here is, because Bayli, you're 20 years old.
Yes.
We're all like wanting to give you, perspective.
Life advice.
So a lot of what we're talking about is like focusing back on you, and maybe for the audience too, focusing back on anyone that's young, that's listening, that's thinking about becoming a professional athlete, or who really is passionate about a sport, and who knows what the possibilities are. But here you are, you're 20. What for you makes you so great at what you're doing at such a young age?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this past year I've just learned so much. Like, I've had a lot of, failure, and I think, having that 10-second memory, but also learning from all the experiences and taking what was good and learning from what was bad and how I can change that has been really great. But, it definitely has its challenges. Like, I'm like you, I'm not great at it. I'm very hard on myself, and you work so hard, and then you don't get what you want, and it's so like, oh my God, I give up so much for this sport, and it's like, that one little thing was off, but you just gotta keep going. And I think that remembering why you do it just makes all the difference. But yeah, so.
What do you think of this? The best athletes are never satisfied.
I believe it. I mean, I feel like even, like, I've won races before, like when I was skiing, I've won races, and I've been like, but it's because there was like not a lot of competition here, or it's because, you just start coming up with reasons like, no, that's not right. Like, someone crashed or something, or someone else had something, so they would have, like, you kind of second guess it. And I think that, like, but that's good. You like need that. Like, you can't expect to win every time. Like, and where are you gonna go if you're not wanting more, even if you're winning?
I used to love that phrase, stay humble, stay hungry.
Yeah.
Is like, I think when you're younger, I think as you get, and it's so funny that you say that, like, we're all kind of, I think we all want to mentor because we're older and we didn't necessarily have a female mentor. And I know it's something, it's so important to help give advice or answer questions to people younger for us. And that stay humble, stay hungry, talking about skiing versus mountaineering is so different, because me taking risks, that's not good. like that's a thing whereas I've gotten older too, you've got to get to this almost Zen place in your life so that you are much more based off of, that positivity and gratitude instead of hungry and humble. And yeah, it is, depends on the sport, depends on your age, where you're at. But we were just talking about before too, the always wanting more. And that's something that I'm mentally really going through right now, because I've achieved a goal I wanted to do, and in the back of my head, it's what's next. And I'm playing with doing another 8,000 meter peak. It gets dangerous, and you get older, and it's not if, it's when, and you're caught in an avalanche, or you're caught in something. And so, but that drive to keep finding that next challenge is always there. And I'm just hoping they can make very intelligent decisions and maybe kind of put it into something else instead of really high mountains from now on. But I don't know, I'm going through that journey right now, mentally.
Well, we're going to explore what's next in just a little bit with Mountain Perspectives. Take a little break. See you soon. welcome back to Mountain Perspectives. I'm your moderator, Kristen Ulmer. We're talking to women in athletics. Next question. What is your worst experience in sports? Alice, why don't we start with you?
Oh gosh, well, I played golf, so it's not that super exciting, but I alluded to it a little bit, being back in Colorado, playing in the Colorado Open, and I didn't play well. I was super defeated. I had a lot of family and friends out there, and so that was a really hard experience for me. But it changed my perspective a little bit. Like, okay, I'm gonna just keep going and turn things around next time I'm playing in the Colorado Open. But nothing dangerous. I don't play a super dangerous sport unless I get hit by a golf ball.
But it's dangerous if your self-esteem is tied to your performance.
True. Yes, that's true. Good point. I was lucky enough to have an amazing college golf coach. I still am in touch with her today. She's 82 years old. And she didn't really know golf that well, actually, the golf swing, and certainly that's changed. That was back in the late 80s. With technology, we've changed how we understand the golf swing. But she was really good at working on our mental game. And we were a very good team. We finished third in nationals in 1988. Should have won a couple national championships, but we were all good, talented golfers. But she really taught us how to deal with our mental side of the game, and golf certainly is a huge mental game, and she was ahead of her time, and she's actually getting recognized with some nice accolades now. She was so far ahead of her time. I mean, there weren't any other coaches doing what she was doing at that time at Oklahoma State. So, she really started me on a good path, and then I didn't turn professional until 8 years after I graduated. So she was still, with me and giving me support, and I also worked with quite a few sports psychologists, which was also not as popular today. Any PGA golfer, LPGA player, they have a sports psychologist on their team. And, your mind is so powerful. So certainly with golf, it's a game changer. I mean, it's something that if you're not in the right mental state, mind, when you're playing, you're not going to have a successful round of golf. So.
What was her predominant message that was so ahead of its time?
The one thing, Bayli alluded to this, having a 10-second memory, but I'm not going to say any profanities on air, but she didn't want us to, if we hit 3 or 4 bad shots or they came in a cluster, she's like, you don't want to carry that bag with you all the way around the course. It's going to get heavier and heavier. You've got to let that stuff go. If you hit a bad shot, don't carry it with you. You've got to just keep on going and looking forward and being in the present. I mean, present tense, not looking, oh, gosh, if I play well, maybe I'll shoot par today. She was like, no, it's the one shot that you're taking. It's the one hole you're playing. Nothing else is coming into play. Stay in the present.
So a couple things about that. First of all, we say that sports are 90% mental, but I want to say that the other 10% is mental too.
It's all mental. Right?
Yeah, but really, actually, when you dig deeper, it's 0% mental. It's when you leave the mind behind and you tap into some other part of us, our bodies, our, for me, emotions, like a flow state is the present, or it is mindless. There's a lot of talk about mindfulness, but I actually am a big fan of mindlessness because that's really, for me, what worked the best. So maybe, Bayli, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of, as an endurance athlete, like, your mind can take over your body. And I think when you're present, that kind of lets your mind go away, like all your thoughts, and then your body can focus. Because when you're pushing yourself like so hard over its limits, like the second you have a tiny thought of like maybe someone passed you just now, or maybe you crashed a little or put your foot out or something like that, something happens, then your mind just like it's so much easier for something to happen, and then your body just kind of lets go. I think if you're more present and calm, then your body has more room to do what it needs to do and use the correct energy instead of your mind. Because like even for me, like I've had a lot of instances this past season where I've been like, oh my God, I literally just let my mind take over. And I know I'm fit and I should have kept going and all these things, but I'm like learning that like I let my head kind of just take over my body. And I think being present and focused, like it's hard. Like you'll have a thought that like passes through your head and you'll be like, and I think acknowledging that it's just a thought and it's like not what actually is going to happen, or, you know, we think about the future like, oh, this girl's going to pass me and then I'm going to get like 4th or 5th or whatever. And I think, you know, not letting that happen and being like, okay, I'm riding my own race. I'm going to push myself as hard as I can. I'm not going to worry about the people watching on the sideline. I'm not going to worry about the person who's in front of me that's having a good race or the person that's behind me or anything like that. I think it's a challenge, but I think it's like really important, and it's hard to learn, especially.
Oh yeah. And it's like, don't think of the purple elephant. Yeah. Don't think of the person in front of me. Yeah. Don't think of the person on my butt, right? And we have 50 thoughts per minute.
Yeah.
And in a 60-minute race, or your races are a lot longer than that. I mean, how many thoughts is that? And how many of them can we ultimately really even control? Exactly. And if we're spending our time on the bike trying to control our thoughts, then where are we too? Exactly. So it is challenging. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's definitely a lot of emphasis on control. Yeah. But what if we just let our mind do its thing? And I don't know, when you're climbing a mountain, what is your mind doing?
I mean, it's totally different. I was just thinking as you're talking, like, I'm not racing someone else.
Yeah.
I'm racing weather. I'm racing heat, cold. I'm racing, I'm not racing an individual usually. And for me, I need my mind working and being present, but I need to be calculating. I need to be really thinking about things. And it's such an endurance sport, and the training that goes into it is, again, you're just hours on the mountain just hiking. All you have is your thoughts. Listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of music. But that's part of it where, and you're talking about like how the negative voices, that did drive me when I'm younger. We all still have those negative voices. But I had to learn as part of doing this sport how to not have those negative voices or shut those out, let those go, and only allow the positive ones in. Because I do have so much time to be thinking. And so, yeah, it is really interesting. And like, so the hardest, I don't have a hardest time. You have instances where you'll have an injury, or you might have the worst nightmarish blisters that are just horrible, but you got to patch it up and you got to keep going because no one's coming to get you. But you keep moving, you keep going, you work through pain. The hardest time I've ever had was a mental breakdown. And it was when I was on Everest in 2021. And that was my first attempt on Everest. And I didn't realize how those conditions were going to eat my body. And during a rotation where you go up from like base camp to rotate to the higher camps to acclimatize, my body would drop so much weight. It was just eating itself, and I could not keep enough calories in. And I am always up at the head of the pack with all the men hiking. I've always been so proud of that. I have never turned away from a hike. And I had gotten down from a rotation, and I went to go to do a day hike, and my energy was down to like 25%, and I had to turn back. And I went to my tent, I was just bawling, and those negative voices all came in. And it's like, what are you even doing on this mountain? You are not good enough. Why are you here? What were you thinking? And all that came in. And I was just like, I just had this moment with myself where the other voice came back, and I was like, girl, you are a dyslexic that became an aerospace engineer. You are literally climbing Mount Everest right now. If you are not good enough for yourself right now, I don't know how to help you. Like, you need to pick your crap up. And so that driving voice, that it did come in. It's like, pick yourself up and go do this, eat more food, whatever you need to do, but I've had enough. If you are not good enough for yourself right now, I am done with you. And my tears turned to laughter in my tent by myself, and literally that breakdown was my breakthrough. And that was the day in 2021, as me as a 40-something-year-old woman, I was finally good enough for myself. And that has stayed with me, And so that those negative voices do drive you, but I come right back in with it like, nope, not today, Satan. We're moving forward.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
Love
so two
Yeah.
things. First of all, my brain just connected the dots of dyslexia and aerospace engineer. That's amazing. Amazing.
I'd like to climb Everest any day over that. Usually, like
Because aerospace engineer, if it's 0.0001 off, it explodes on launch, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you, okay, so then the second thing is, I one time tried to climb and ski Cho Oyu, and I got up to about 23,000 feet, and I'm like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going any further. I don't have what that takes. I have what it takes to risk my life skiing something that lasts, 5 minutes, but I just don't have that thing that you just described where I'm like, my brain was like, this is stupid, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I can
But
look at
you-
where you're doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never do that.
So it's like, these are all
Yeah.
just different skill sets.
different.
I would be a terrible golfer. It's like, and I went mountain biking the other day. I'm terrible at it. And you think skiing and mountain bike, anyway. But it's like we can become really, really good at one thing or two things or, but I really feel like honing in on just one thing that just complements all of your gifts and all of your personality traits and all of your, childhood wounds and all that. It's like the perfect storm and we have
Yeah.
you, and we have perfect storm and we have you.
Yeah.
Perfect storm and we have you.
That's a lovely analogy. I really like that.
I know, this is very
We're all
exciting.
perfect little storms.
All right, so for the people who are listening, I know you're all athletic people. Like, have you picked the sport that is the perfect storm for you and your personality? We're going to take a little break. See you back in a little bit. Welcome back to Mountain Perspectives. I'm your moderator, Kristen Ulmer. We're with this cast of characters, these amazing women, and we're going to now talk about public image. Like, how responsible are we for being good role models for other girls or just people in general? Bayli, do you want to start with this?
Yeah, I'd say it's really hard with like social media. Like I'm learning a lot, especially as I'm kind of getting up in the ranks a little bit more. It's become like super important, and like eyes are on you. I'm on this team that like our director, she really is encouraging that we are good mentors for the sport, and which is awesome. I love it. It's great, and it's so cool. It's cool to have the opportunity. But so you got social media, and it's definitely challenging. Something you have to get used to. Something you have to also like. You want to portray like all these cool things, but sometimes you have to be like, all right, I can't show this. So it's like hard to always show your best self, and I think I'm learning to show not only my best self, but that the other sides as well, which has been definitely interesting. And I think it's pretty good. Like I've learned a lot about it, and it's hard, but you learn. It's definitely hard.
Right, and you're living in a different era. And actually,
Yeah.
Megan, you are also in this era because you're currently being a professional athlete, whereas I'm more retired, you're more retired at this point, taking on different roles. You're head of Vail Golf Club,
Yes.
am I saying that right?
Yes.
And I'm a mindset sports coach, and so we don't have to deal with sponsors anymore, but you guys are dealing with sponsors, and so right now the game is social media and having that presence, and what was so great in our era, we could just be selfish, we could just be just ourselves and focus on our goals versus having to be externally focused on your public persona. So that's an element of pressure and expectation, especially because I assume you have sponsors.
Oh, yeah.
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 And that's the price of admission for sponsors now versus just being awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like kind of what I've kind of taken away is showing that like you can't always be perfect. It's okay to have, bad races. It's okay to, it's okay to eat some treats here and there, like not always be perfect and in ways like that, and like show it. I think sponsors like to see that you can overcome things and you can show your vulnerability to other people, which is kind of where I want to take my like social media and everything. I want everyone to, you know, feel comfortable and feel like they can relate, because there are like, it's a very small percentage that I'm perfect all the time, or, you know, looking good on my bike all the time, or, you know, all these things. So I think making sure to be just real is really important. But I mean, with sponsors and everything, it's also kind of like part of the deal now. It's kind of helped a lot of athletes get sponsors and keep sponsors, and, you know, show, it's a good door. It's, you know, not always the best. It's hard to learn and figure out, but it's a good door. It's a good opportunity to get new sponsors, show people who you are. It's kind of your profile. So there's good and bad.
So in the conversation about public image, I remember when I was first on camera giving my first interview, very beginning of my career. And I thought, okay, I have so many different sides to my personality.
Yeah.
This is before social media, and I'm like, what part of me, you know, I had this very introspective, sweet side, I had this kind of crazy, wild side, you know, I had lots of other sides too, and there's also the caring and wanting to support other people's side that you're talking about, you know, wanting to send a positive message. And I thought, the camera's pointing at me, I'm like, what part of me do I want to have my reputation be? And you know what I picked?
What?
Wild, crazy Kristen. and it was wild, crazy, sexy Kristen too. And it really worked for me. And so there are so many different choices. I think the obvious one is the sending the message that it's okay to be who you are, and it's okay to eat that, and it's okay to feel bad, because I think that's probably the most helpful and the one that girls or just other people most need to hear. But we definitely always have choices.
Yeah.
But that's the one that you choose. So why did you choose that? Because I'm sure you have a lot of other sides to your personality.
When I was younger, I would have, like, I look up to the people that are like that, and I would have wanted more girls like that. I would have liked to not have, you know, some people on social media, and growing up with social media, it's hard to look at that, and that's, oh, as a little kid, like, that's what you got to be. Like, no, I want someone to be like, oh, like, I'm looking forward to that. I feel like I don't need to be a certain person. I can be myself. I can do what my heart wants me to do. I can, you know, and everyone has their own way of doing things, you know. Like the eating thing, for example, like, you know, some athletes, you know, they're very strict about it, very, you know, got to be super lean, got to be super, and it's great. It works for them, but it doesn't always work for everyone. And I think changing like people's perspectives is like, you can be strong and do it how you want to, like, as long as you're strong, like, you can do it any way possible for that. And I think showing young girls, you know, that person to look up to, that I think it's important, because that's who I would have wanted to look up to. So
Okay.
yeah.
So Megan, you're the obvious next person to talk about this, because you're also current, and you also have a website called grit.com. And so you're definitely focused on sending a message out to the world based on your life experience that you hope will impact people.
Yeah, for sure. And it is interesting to me, because I did not grow up with social media, how everything has changed, and to get any sort of sponsorship, how important social media is. So I definitely had to learn that role. And when I started out, I did feel like, okay, well, I'm going to present this and this. And it was, I got some help, and they helped me realize you need to show all sides and everything. To what you're saying, I think we do have a responsibility for younger generations or any other female to help them feel comfortable in their skin. You can have all these different sides. I have like 8 different personalities. I'm going to show them all. I'm going to show the good days and the bad days. And I do feel that responsibility, especially to women, because I think male and female athletes, to a big extent, are held to a different standard. And especially in the public eye. I think women are scrutinized so much more than men are. Men can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And if a woman does, oh my gosh, you know, she's out. That needs to stop. We need to change the narrative. And so for me, on my social media, I really want to touch all the different things. I touch a lot on neurodivergence and helping people that are dyslexic, ADHD, Asperger's, whatever it is, feel good about what they're doing and know that I have tough days with that, really tough days, and picking yourself back up again. Or I like to think of it too, as far as getting sponsorship, I am 49 years old. I am not some, like the young, upcoming years to go in that career. And I also want women at whatever age they are feeling amazing about themselves. And at any point, you can start whoever you want to be and reach your full potential. So it is important for me to do social media posts that maybe my makeup isn't perfect, maybe no makeup on, totally in a tent, hat on, had been on for like 20 days. And that was hard for me to allow all of that. But I think to what you said, at any age, we need to be comfortable with exactly who we are, and we need to help other people do that as well. And so, social media has become a great tool to try to reach people and share those messages that I've learned through the years of, I think you being the young, I remember I used to be like the young hot thing and on the mountain and, 25 years old, and now I'm the mama bear. And it's that transition, especially as a woman too, through your career to learn and embrace those new things. And I am trying my best to really share that on social media as well. Just that transformation, that journey that I'm going through.
Well, then let's talk about the, we are in male-dominated sports, every single, golf, cross-country mountain biking, mountain climbing, skiing, these are male-dominated sports. And it's a completely different game being women, isn't it? Yeah. And when we're talking about sponsors, too, it's a completely different game. And how we present ourselves, we're expected to be soft and loving and nurturing and, showing what's capable. You don't see that with the Dennis Rodmans. They're just doing whatever the heck they want, right? And maybe I could come up with a more current example if you can think of one. But so the unique challenges as women in male-dominated sports, and these, we're fringe sports. You're a mainstream sport. Why don't we start with you, talking about mainstream sports and being a big player in a male-dominated sports. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's hard. I've been a member of the PGA now for 26 years, so a long time, and there's 28,000 members in PGA of America, and we're running golf courses, we're teaching the game, and it's still 4% ladies out of that number. So, and it was like that when I entered the PGA and started going through the process to become a PGA professional. And, it's, I want to support younger women that are trying to do what I'm doing now. I'm running the golf operation. It's very rare for women to be in my position, but I want to help young girls because it's not easy. You have to be very determined, have, be okay with, all the extraneous things coming at you. So, I will say, I grew up playing with the boys on the golf course. I played on a college men's team with the guys, and, they were all super supportive of me. It wasn't, they were all my good friends. They were very supportive, and I've had amazing support from the Colorado PGA section. We're a pretty big section, and 2 years ago, my peers nominated me to be the PGA Professional of the Year for 2021, and then it's a peer review. Whoever receives the award. So, and all those were men. There's about 35 women in our section out of almost 900 members. So, it's given me a lot of drive being, as a female in this industry that's not so popular, but again, I've received mentorship from other men professionals, and we have a great network, and they always joke that it's a fraternity. I'm like, hey guys, hey, what about me? So, but I've had great support, and I just would love to see more women, getting into roles like myself. And the PGA is trying, they're doing a good job currently bringing some diversity into the game and trying to make golf look like our country, right? So it's not just a white man's sport. It really isn't. And the PGA, they're making strides. And all of us running operations, we're trying to do the same and be welcoming to women that want to get into the game and want to play. Megan was just saying she's
Just
getting
learning.
into the game. So
What do you think is preventing women from taking up golf? Even not becoming professional golfers, but even taking up the sport?
Interestingly, COVID 2020, that was an absolute game changer for women in golf. 1 year it took. So many women were entering the game, coming back to the game, starting the game, but I think it's an intimidating sport. So, it is a male-dominated sport. It's intimidating. You feel like you go up to the first tee and all eyes are on you.
Well, hold on. All sports are intimidating to men or women. So what?
But it's a recreational sport where they're not really watching you, but you feel like when you're teeing off, hitting a shot, everyone's watching you.
Oh, they're watching you
and they
judging
are.
you.
They're totally
judging to learn. They're watching, they're judging, they're commenting. I can go hike by myself.
Oh yeah, mountain bike by yourself, ski ride. Golf, everybody's watching.
Right, so I think that's a big piece of that
Yeah.
intimidation factor. And I try and, I teach all ages and really try and be encouraging and positive and say, don't worry about all those people watching.
Not only are they watching, everybody's quiet.
And
waiting
everyone's
to see
quiet.
what happens.
Exactly, and the ball is just sitting there. Nothing's,
All right.
just
Well,
sitting
we're going to
there.
come back to this question. We're going to take a little break on mountain perspectives. We're going to come back in a little bit and continue discussing the challenges of being women athletes in male-dominated sports. See you in a little bit. Welcome back to Mountain Perspectives, where we have fascinating topics on subjects that involve mountain living. We are discussing women in athletics, and we're right in the middle of a conversation about the challenges of being a woman athlete in male-dominated sports. So, Bayli, your turn. What do you want to say about that? Sky's the limit.
I remember the first time I joined my high school mountain bike team. I just did it for, I actually joined when I was in 8th grade, and my dad made me do it. And I was like, I didn't want to do it because it was all boys. There were not really any girls, and they were all older, and I was so scared. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And kind of similar to you, I kind of got in it, and they were supportive, and they pushed me, and they, made me a better rider. And I did more things that I feared, and because of that, it made me better, I think. So that was, being in that, they kind of push you a little bit. I would say that I'm kind of so new to the sport that I don't really know, men and women, kind of how different it is. I would say, definitely the men are definitely more televised, more sponsors. There are some professional teams that have more men than women, and they have, there's one team that you have to have at least one woman, and they only have one woman. Seriously, you can't split it up or, have more women. And but, it is how it is. And I do think more girls are getting into the sport because so many of the girls that do the sport are amazing, and, they are very good mentors, and they're making it fun, and they're making it kind of achievable in a way. USA Cycling and, a lot of these people, these development teams are really helping girls and even young kids in general, come up and, really want to do this. And I think it's super cool. But I've not really, with my sport, have had a lot of dealing with the men versus women, but I would say that I think it is kind of changing, which is good. I want it to be, obviously, you want it to be even, but I would say that it's going in the right direction, which is good.
It's changing in that more women are taking up these sports. And let's shift the conversation too into sponsorship dollars. It's okay, from a marketing perspective, more men mountain bike, more men watch mountain biking races, more men buy mountain biking clothes and shoes and all that. And so the marketing directors are marketing to men.
Yes.
And so then probably the men mountain bikers are getting more sponsorship dollars than the women mountain bikers.
Yes.
And race, I don't know if you guys get. So the question I have is, do you understand that and it's okay, or does it make you mad?
Well, of course it makes me mad. I mean, that's not okay. We, in a World Cup, you race the same course as the men. It's the same amount of technical features. Everything's the same. You maybe do like one lap less, but it's just as hard. The women are doing very crazy things, just as crazy as the men are doing. But I kind of feel like, I want it to change and it makes me angry, but like I said, I think it's changing. And I think there's going to be more people watching the women because these women are starting to train with the men. They're starting to kind of come into the light. They're starting to show. And I think some companies and sponsors are seeing that and they want to support women, especially in biking. So I think that, it's changing a little bit and it should be good.
So let's turn it to Megan. So sponsorships can be seen as support for the athlete, but also sponsorship is a way for that company to have a reputation so that they can sell more product. And ultimately that's what these companies are doing, is they're making strategic movements with their budget so that they can best be more profitable and also be a pillar in their community for all things great regarding the sport. So there's a lot going on here with sponsorships. It's not just about support, it's about also like marketing budgets and appropriate allocation of resources, to be super technical about it. Like I remember when I was a professional athlete, I actually made more money than the guys just because it was, I was selling the sport better. Not because they wanted to support me because I was a woman, but because I was just really good at selling the sport, and so that's what got me more money. So it really is an interesting game. It's not so black and white as just support or no support. It's about like, what do you offer that company? Do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, and it's a very good point, because at the end of the day, whoever's sponsoring you, they have a business to run. They do need to think about it. I think what's changing now is it comes back to integrity and responsibility. I think certain corporations I've seen in news, I follow this quite a bit, are taking an initiative and made a decision that they will absolutely split marketing dollars half and half. That is a huge thing for a corporation to do. And I think the reason is there are a lot of us who have been in sports or corporations or business that we are speaking up and asking for change. And women are getting in positions of power to help make change at these companies and make these initiatives go forward. I realize it was everything that's happened in soccer too about equal pay. Well, you guys not as much money is made. Well, it's not being made as much because it's not marketed as much. We've got to start making some change for things to actually have an opportunity to become equal. And so it is little steps like this, and asking and looking for corporations. I know, since I also work for a major aerospace company, I also understand who does not sponsor me, but I understand the other side of the business as well, and things that we go through within a corporation as far as equality. There are initiatives going on in corporations for inclusion, for equality and different things. And I don't want to say it's popular right now. It's actually just trending, and there is change being made. So I applaud the corporations that really are taking a stance and making I think, an ethical decision to sponsor, but a lot of companies aren't. And it's just, like you said, we're moving in that direction. It doesn't happen overnight. So you have to keep going. And for going for sponsorship, a lot of times what I will do is I will approach a company of a product I actually use, and I put that in there, be like, this is a chance for you to support a female, and this can go towards your goals and mission statement at a company. And so, yeah, I do think that companies are starting to pay attention, but there's a long way to go between that marketing money being split equally between men and women.
I'm thinking of Tom's shoes.
Oh.
And you buy a pair and they donate a pair. And wildly successful company. And so then I think of like the North Face. If they have equal sponsorships for men and women, then that might change the way people view that company ethically,
Yes.
and then be more inclined to buy from them.
Yes.
So kind of in the same genre.
And mountaineering is, I was listening to the different examples. I do like to make parallels between, aerospace engineering and mountaineering, both very male dominated. I went through aerospace very young, through college. My first job, I was paired with a gentleman getting ready to retire. He literally told me to my face, "I don't think women belong here. I'll make sure you're out within a month." I was like, wow. I luckily had an amazing mentor and feminist, my father, who was in aerospace. I could just call him all the time, like from the bathroom, and be like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" He's like, "Be professional. Here's how we handle it." Okay. So I had great guidance. And the next job I had was with a gentleman who, oh my gosh, he was 45, which seems so old at the time. But he was going through a divorce, and so now I was being sexually harassed. How do I deal with this one? So very young in my career, I got over how to deal with men professionally very quickly and learn my voice to be strong. So by the time I really got into mountaineering, it wasn't even an issue for me. But you show up day one on the bottom of a mountain or a new job in aerospace, they're going to make it, they size me up, there's no way she's going to be able to do this. In aerospace, even though if I do a really good job, they can still kind of say, well, she had help or whatever it is. Mountaineering, there is no denying my summit. There's no denying that I carried just as much as you, 220-pound guy. There's no denying the fact that I was faster than you. And I have, at the end of a mountain, I have had so many men who thought they had me sized up be like, "I want to apologize to you. You just kicked my rear." And I'm like, "Well, thank you, good sir." But that's one thing I love. And the mountaineering industry is really, they're changing. There are so many feminist men and women in mountaineering, and all the logistic companies have these huge initiatives to try to attract more women. They want half females on their teams. And I'm loving what they're doing, like RMI, climbing the 7 summits, alpine ascents. They're really taking change and trying to get women into the field and to enjoy the outdoors. So it's really, I'm really happy to be a part of that community.
The progress has been profound.
Yeah.
And it's still growing. I also want to introduce a little awkward conversation to this because I want to tell a story. When it was probably the late 90s, and I was fully sponsored, super famous, hosted my own television show, monthly columns in 4 different ski magazines around the world. Like, I was at the top of my game, and one of my sponsors invited me to Arizona because they wanted to discuss my sponsorship. And I got there, and we went out to dinner, picked me up at the airport, checked in the hotel, we went out to dinner, and he was very, this is the marketing director, and dropped me off at my hotel. He had had a couple drinks and tried to force himself into my hotel room and was just grabbing at me. I'm like, what? Like, how is this even possible that this is happening, given where I am in my life right now? And I just, at the time, like when the Me Too campaign came out, I'm like, oh, geez, I have like 50 stories, not like that, but just in my life, not necessarily professional career, but this was a sponsor of mine. And it's crazy to think about that. And I just like, oh, God, please, and slammed the door on him and almost broke his arm. But then he kept calling me, and I mean, like, it was upsetting at the time, and just reflecting back on that now, could something like that happen today without me calling the police? Probably not. But I didn't back then. This is the late 90s. Mm-hmm. And so there's also progress made there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have had any weird experiences with sponsors, or, I mean, it's like the proverbial casting room couch. Like, it's hard to get sponsors in these fringe sports. There's a lot of different people that are submitting proposals. And, that stuff does happen. I don't know if it still does. I assume it does. But
I get more worried about the younger women who are facing things. Again, I'm at an age, and I have my strength. I have my voice. if anyone even tried anything, no, I would come at him like a spider monkey. Like it, but for
yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I almost broke his arm.
But think about what that does to any female, not just in sports, but degrades their confidence in their skill and who they are. It is damaging.
That didn't happen to me though. So not necessarily. And actually, this is a good segue into the next question. Like, we are obviously for very powerful, strong, confident women. Is this innate in us, or did we have to work really hard to get here? Because for me, that moment was like, oh, hell no. Like, it was it didn't make me cower. It made me be like, pfft, right? Like flicking away an ant. But that felt innate for me. That's just who I am. But for other women, that may actually degrade their confidence.
Also,
so how about you guys? Is your confidence and power and strength innate, or have you had to work at it? Why don't we start with you, Bayli?
For me, I mean, I've always been like a super independent, I would say I'm pretty confident in myself. Like, I don't feel the need to be in people's presence all the time. Like, I don't feel the need to be, looked at by other people. Like, I'm not a big, like, I don't go to parties. I don't go to all that stuff because I'm content with myself. I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with my life. I'm pretty confident in that. And I'd say, I luckily haven't had many experience or no experiences like that. But I would think, after hearing experiences and seeing how that has affected people, I would say that I would be confident enough to, to be strong in myself and be able to say, have my own voice, like you were saying. So,
Alice, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. I think it's a little bit of both. I was the youngest of 4 in our family. I was Daddy's little girl. We spent so much time together, so I think he helped give me a lot of confidence. I'm sure I feel like I was born with, some of that as well. But my dad was my hero and taught me so many things and gave me so much confidence. So I think, and I never had any situations like you were speaking of. I worked with a group of guys at the Singletree Golf Course. It's now Sonnenalp. And in today's world, the talk in there probably would have been sexual harassment, but I was like, I just kind of was like, yeah, guys, that's really funny. And I just kind of, I didn't feel, that they were doing anything that they shouldn't have been doing at that time, but it wouldn't fly in today's business at all. But I think that confidence is, you build that over time, and your experiences, life experiences, whatever's thrown at you. So I think it's a little bit of both.
And the common thread I think about, my dad was a huge, my mom and my father, I attribute everything I am to having a really wonderful upbringing. And my dad gave me that strength to believe in myself. And I think that's, of course, any parent, just being loved, I'm so grateful for that. But really, my dad helping me understand, like, you can be an engineer if you want to. You can climb that mountain if you want to. And I think I know that mine was having that, but also really, again, having to deal with a learning disability growing up. That taught me to have that drive and keep going and never give up. And when everyone else told me I couldn't, I said I could. So I think by the time I got older, I was able to either, avoid, dodge and weave. And then actually the Me Too movement, I think, was so empowering for all women that we don't have to just ignore it anymore. We could actually say something about it and really speak up. And I think that's really important. And I think we have that strength that's built, but not every woman, and you never know until you're in a situation. You'd think you would act a certain way, but I never want to judge, and I'd like to know how I'd act, but you never know. I mean, I guess I know at this age, same thing, like, see you later. But when I was younger, and if it's your only sponsorship, and what if I lose this, and what do you do? And those just are just not situations someone should have to be in. End of story.
Well, I feel like now there's a lot of education, like for me, like we've gone through Safe Sport, like every single person associated with USA Cycling has to do Safe Sport. Like it is very, very, very big, and you have to every year. go back and do the training again. And so it's like, it's been very like recognized, I think, at my age, and there's been a lot more education on it. So that's why I think it's kind of, you know, less and less. And, you know, like the instance you were saying when, you know, things probably wouldn't have passed now. What happened then is like, and you know, it's different now because we have training and we have rules and people have become aware of it and spoken up about things like that.
Right.
So I think like that's awesome, which
Wow,
has been good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Really good.
All right, loving this conversation. Let's take a quick break. Mountain Perspectives will come back, and I have one more really, really juicy question to ask these wonderful women. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Mountain Perspectives, our panel of women in athletics. I want to introduce, because I'm a fear and anxiety expert. I wrote a book called The Art of Fear, and fear is my most fascinating. Like, I walk the earth and I'm just so curious about people's relationship with fear. So I want to ask you guys about your relationship. And I want to bring into the topic of conversation the nature versus nurture, because I've kind of been hinting upon that this entire discussion. It's like, did we come out of the womb this way? And then, of course, we're influenced by people that are important in our lives, you know, and then, of course, it makes it easier if you're positively influenced. And it's just maybe a little bit harder if we're negatively influenced by parents or society or men even, or the industry or sponsors. But are we innate risk takers? Are we innately drawn like moths to a flame, like towards fear or towards things that are, and when I say fear, I don't mean scared or afraid. I mean like things that are gonna be out of our comfort zone, like a willingness to feel fear, because it is a big deal to take up golf. It's crickets, quiet, everybody's watching, right? Endurance, mountain biking, like just mountain biking alone, my gosh, it's super scary, dangerous. I'm not even gonna, Everest and all that. And then the big mountain extreme skiing, like for me, extreme means the consequences of failure were death or severe injury. So we are all risk takers here. And anyone that lives in a mountain town is innately going to be a risk taker. And that means, in my mind, as a fear expert, that means they're innately willing to feel fear or invite more fear into their lives. So I want to know what your relationships are with fear. And maybe we can start with you.
Fear all day, every day. Like my mom actually told me she thinks I was born without the fear gene. But it was, yes, I think there's always a component of born a certain way, but I lived with fear every single day growing up, being called an idiot, being called retarded, stupid. I grew up in a brilliant family, and my family treated me well, but everyone else told me you won't get a degree, you'll never do this, you'll never do this. So I think I lived fear every single day. Are they going to call me to read? Are they going to call me? And so I didn't know any different. And you just worked harder than everyone else. That's what my mom always told me, and that's how I grew up. So then I would take on new challenges and new challenges and new challenges. And of course you feel like, oh gosh, how am I going to get through this? But you get through it, and that becomes addictive. That rush of, I just made it through that. And then you start to seek out those challenges. And like every expedition I go into, I cannot wait to meet the woman that comes out the other end, because it's not going to be me right here. Because I will have pushed, I will have gone through something, I will have struggled, and I will change, and I will morph, and I'll be better. And so, yes, I look for challenge, I look for struggle, I look for fear. And that started as being that little kid that was so afraid of not being good enough. And that is who has created who I am today.
So many childhoods are like that,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why your website, because that's what worked for you. It's like,
Yeah.
and I just the amount of perseverance that you have to have in order to have dyslexia and become an aerospace engineer, never mind the rest, like that's amazing.
I was on the nice 5-year plan for college.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about
You're
that. It took me a
willing.
little while.
Yeah, you're willing to feel fear.
I had to repeat a couple classes.
Okay, well, but you kept going.
Yes, you get back
The
up.
failures.
You get back up. You lick your little wounds and you keep going. Yeah, and that's something I think that we definitely all share, is that ability to pick ourselves back up and try again. Like, you have to have that.
Yeah,
You
like
choose it. You have to choose it.
the song by Pink.
Oh,
Try.
yeah, that's a good one.
Alice.
Whoa, I don't know if I could answer that question after Megan's response there. That was amazing. It's a deep question. I hadn't really thought about it that much, and certainly when I was competing, I had a fear of not succeeding. So that was ongoing all the time. In my most recent time, I have a good story about fear. I've always been afraid of heights. So, and I that was a gift from my mother, and I've tried ongoing to overcome that. But I was diagnosed with MS in 2006 April, and when I got that diagnosis, I could barely walk around the block, and that's the real story. So, Jimmy Huga is a big hero of mine because he lived his life. It's what I can do. It's not what I can't do. The only thing I had to give up was ice hockey, which is my most favorite sport ever, and I just couldn't play it anymore. But on the fear side, so I actually took a trip to the Swiss Alps in 2016, and I did some mountaineering. We navigated a very narrow ridge. It was steep on both ends. I'm scared of heights. So we're all tied together. I've got skis on my backpack, crampons, and I'm like, wow, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm up on this ridge, and everyone was supportive of me. But when I completed that, and I was turning 50, that was my 50th birthday gift to myself, to put myself outside my comfort zone. Yeah. And by doing that was the first time in maybe my whole life that I actually put myself in that position. And I had MS, and it was a very demanding trip. Succeeded. It changed my life. It changed my everyday life and perspective of everything I do. So I applaud Megan for you doing that and pushing yourself and keep doing what you're doing. But that was a big game changer for me. So and I know we're talking about different types of fear, but that was, now I'm not as afraid of heights, actually. And I just operate differently every day.
Huh. That's amazing.
The journey of understanding ourselves includes understanding our relationship with fear and navigating it throughout the entirety of our lives. And how fear manifests for you is different from how it manifests for me and, for all of us. And the conversation about our relationship with fear, I think, is almost the most important conversation of all, because it really shows us who we are as people. And not that we can overcome fear, but our relationship with fear pretty much determines everything. If you're a fear avoider, you don't take risks and you don't take up these sports, or certainly get to this higher level. Bayli, what is your relationship with fear?
Overcoming fear definitely takes practice. I think, like both these ladies have said, like it's, doing something that scares you is kind of what makes you realize, oh, like I can do more things, and I can do things that I'm scared of doing or fear because I've done it before and I've gotten through it. And like, no matter what happens, you get through it. And, but it can be anything. Like it can be trying a new feature on the course, or fear of failing, or it can be like, honestly, fear of letting people down, like and like all these different things. But I think letting go of that outside noise and just kind of overcoming it and, doing what scares you and realizing that, wow, I'm capable of a lot more than I thought, and keeping that confidence and carrying that forward with things that are going to be scary in the future, I think is important. So, yeah.
And it all starts with a willingness to feel fear in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
Well, it's been amazing talking to you, women. And I want to thank the audience for staying with us on this important, big, gorgeous subject. I want to thank all of you, Bayli, Alice, Megan, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So please stay tuned to this channel for more mountain perspectives, lots more conversations in the making to come. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.